What's up, guys? Welcome back. All right, I know exactly how I want to go about this. Those of you that know me know that I am constantly thinking about eliminating friction. It's those little things that make it harder to go from having an idea to actually building something. And in composite mold fabrication, friction is everywhere. Now, one of the biggest barriers I've seen over the years in the precast world, especially during hands-on workshops, is getting people to actually build their first composite mold. I knew this going in, but I found that we were probably spending too much time fabricating patterns and not nearly enough time doing the thing that everyone actually came to learn, pulling molds from those patterns. And I really wanted to fix that. But it wasn't just happening in workshops. I saw the exact same thing happening outside of them as well. People would decide that they wanted to get into composites, build a fiberglass mold, realize they needed to start with a pattern first, and then discover just how much work actually goes into making a really good one. Things get busy, project stalls, and eventually they just decide to skip the whole thing altogether, just make the mold directly. And look, I get it. Unfortunately, that becomes a vicious cycle. They never really experience what's possible because the barrier to getting started is simply too high. That's exactly why I started developing Catalyst. Not because I wanted to create another product, but because I wanted to eliminate one of the biggest sources of friction I kept seeing over and over again. Catalyst is a configurable master mold making system for sinks, a production-ready starting point that lets you spend less time building patterns and more time learning how to build great molds, because that's really where the fun begins, and that's what enables us to cast amazing things in concrete. Now, once I started looking at mold making through that lens, I realized that the same question shows up everywhere. How do we reduce friction without sacrificing quality? I built production molds the traditional way for years. It's a proven process, it works, but it comes with trade-offs, and it's not lost on me that it's a toxic, tedious, and time-consuming process. That's exactly what caught my attention about the Uni-Mould system. Uni-Mould isn't trying to replace fiberglass. It's trying to remove some of that friction that traditionally comes with it. Brushable tooling gel coat eliminates the need to spray and everything that comes along with that. Filled tooling resin eliminates the tedious lather, rinse, repeat layup, and it's designed to laminate the entire mold in one shot. Less equipment, simpler workflow. Still fiberglass, just a different way of thinking about it. That got my attention. At the same time, as I've continued developing Catalyst, I've been exploring a number of different approaches that all try to answer that exact same question. How do we build great molds with less friction? Some of those approaches still use fiberglass. Others use alternative materials and methods. And we'll explore all of those together over time. But this system, this is a great place to start. Now, the second I placed the order, I knew I wanted to put Uni-Mould through a real test on something I'd actually put to use. I've got a ton of interesting projects in mind, so stay tuned for those. But we're going to start by fabricating complete production sink molds using the Uni-Mould tooling system. They've got an excellent set of online tutorials, so I'm going to follow the Uni-Mould process almost exactly as they recommend it. The only change I'm planning to make is the release system. Easy Composites recommends using their chemical release agent, which I'm actually excited to try because I've never used a chemical release system before. But these catalyst patterns are made from type 1 PVC, and I'm just not sure how the chemical release system will affect those. I already have honey wax release system, and I know it works extremely well with vinyl ester tooling gel coat on PVC. So for these larger patterns, I'm going to roll with that to start with. I'll definitely exercise their chemical release on one of my smaller demonstration model patterns first. I want to get some experience with it because everything I've researched has pointed toward chemical release really being the way to go. Other than that, we're following their playbook pretty much verbatim. Now, as I mentioned in another video, I was genuinely blown away by the customer experience. I ordered the large Uni-Mould tooling kit, and aside from the chemical release agent that I added separately, it really is a complete system. It includes the brushable vinyl ester tooling gel coat, the coupling coat, the filled laminating resin, and then there's both weights of chop strand mat, and a bunch of little things you'd otherwise find yourself adding to the cart separately or sourcing yourself. Brushes, gloves, rollers, everything you need to get started. Now, I already have some of those tools and materials on the shelf. I didn't necessarily need another pair of gloves or more rollers, but I'm honestly glad that they included them, especially the higher quality brush for applying tooling gel coat, which would have been easy to overlook. And I'd have to fall back on low quality chip brushes. Not great. Now, nothing earth shattering here, but little details like that tell me someone really thought through the experience from the perspective of someone opening the box and building their first mold. And the thing that surprised me most, even with a few duplicate items I didn't necessarily need, the complete kit that includes the heavier 450 CSM that I already have by the roll, it was actually a better value than piecing together just the individual raw materials without it. Now, I'll go back and do the math because aside from the VE chemicals that have a really short shelf life, normally I'd think to buy things in bulk wherever possible. Buy the reinforcement here and just the chemicals there. But if my math is right, I think the kit just might be the ticket. As I mentioned, everything showed up from the UK to California in less than a week. Pretty incredible. So now let's find out if the product lives up to the experience. All right, normally the first step with Catalyst would be configuring the master for the sink you want to build. And it's pretty simple. Step 1, select the profile. There's a number of different options available. Step 2, set the width and the preferred side angle geometry. Step 3, establish the drainage plane. And this is really the only fabrication work that you need to do. And it literally is as simple as taking a few shims and wrapping them in stucco tape. That's it. Everything that's needed to define the finished sink. So in this case though, I've already done all of that. This one is a ramp style sink, trough drain, 30-degree sides, set a sink width of 42.5 inches. Yes, 42.5 inches. This one over here, also a ramp style sink, but with that beautiful infinity style seamless slot drain, more dramatic 45-degree sides, set at 30 inches. Now we won't go into all the details and benefits here, but with the Catalyst system, you have multiple profiles in seamless slot and trough drain configurations, and each profile comes with 3 sets of sides, 5, 30, and 45 degrees, that produce a ton of different looks with the same profile. Now, I originally configured these 2 patterns for another workflow I've been developing that also dramatically accelerates the mold fabrication process. But once the Uni-Mould Kit arrived, I realized these would make the perfect test pieces. Now, not that it's hard or time consuming, but instead of starting from scratch, we're jumping straight into filleting and detailing. With Catalyst, even most of that is taken care of. Everything's CNC'd in thermoform, which produces beautiful, clean radiuses along those edges from front to back. Now, the only reason we need to do filleting is because, again, the sides are adjustable, and you can configure the drainage plane however you need. So we just need to fillet along the edges of each side and along the drainage plane. Probably obvious, but that'll make a lot more sense once we get into the build. After that, it's mold release. Again, we'll use honey wax here, and then we're ready to roll. We'll brush on our tooling gel coat, brush on our coupling coat, and then proceed to laminating our bulking, including laminating in an integral pull for releasing it from the cast sink. And then we'll finally get to answer the question that started this whole thing. Can Uni-Mould reduce the friction of building production quality fiberglass molds? Honestly, I'm optimistic, but I don't know for sure. And that's exactly what makes this exciting. So let's jump in. We're going to find out together.